The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened. Chapter 1, Still have half a year to live. Chapter 1, Half a year to live. Without warning, Chiyu collapsed on the playground. She was in physical education class at the time, and she discovered that Ning Jin was wearing limited edition running shoes that she had flown in from the UK just a few days ago. I ordered my servants to wash it, but I haven't had time to put it on yet. Faced with Chiyu's stern questioning, Ning Jin blushed, took off her shoes on the spot, and apologized to her. I'm sorry, miss. Maybe the maid sister accidentally picked up the wrong shoes when she was collecting them. I thought they were the new running shoes my mother bought for me. Why do you think you are blind? Chiyu sneered, you took the wrong shoes, the wrong clothes, the wrong school bag. What are you going to take next? What she said was too harsh, and Ning Jin couldn't help but blush in embarrassment. The classmates in the class whispered and sympathized with Ning Jin, but due to Chiyu's identity, no one dared to come forward to defend Ning Jin. Then the people who can complain come. Jin Yao from class 7, Chiyu's fiancé, and Si Mo's school bully. Jin Yao was originally playing basketball on the nearby basketball court. When he saw everyone in his class gathered together, he had a bad premonition that prompted him to put down his teammates and run over. Chiyu's voice was neither high nor low, enough for Jin Yao to hear clearly. Those insulting words made Jin Yao feel angry. He pushed aside the crowd, walked up to Chiyu, and ordered her coldly, apologized to Ning Jin. Chiyu's face was expressionless. Why? Just because I bought these shoes for her. Oh. Chiyu laughed. She looked at her handsome fiancé, her charming cat eyes widened slightly, looking curious. Didn't she say that her mother bought it for her? Why did she lie to everyone? Do you feel guilty? And why did you buy such expensive shoes for her? Aren't you my fiancé? Are you in two different situations now? You. She tilted her head with a mocking expression. How far are you going? Chiyu. Jin Yao growled unbearably, his handsome face slightly distorted. Do you have to be so annoying? Chiyu was too lazy to pay attention to him, and casually bent down to Ning Jin. I'm sorry, I just slandered you. In front of her classmates, Ning Jin looked very kind and waved her hand. It's nothing. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Chiyu, who smiled half-heartedly. You took the wrong shoes. You took them to the wrong person. Can I be generous and give you Jin Yao? Ning Jin was stunned and shed tears of grievance on the spot. Jin Yao and I are innocent. Miss, you can't ruin my reputation. After hearing this, Chiyu held his stomach and smiled from ear to ear. Reputation? You, a thief who takes my things at every turn, have the nerve to talk about reputation? The more she spoke, the more she went overboard. Jin Yao couldn't bear it and growled, that's enough. That's enough for your uncle. Chiyu stopped the smile on his face and said coldly to Jin Yao, I will tell my uncle that the engagement between the two families is cancelled. From now on, you can treat her unscrupulously and no one will stop you. Jin Yao had long been fed up with her bad temper, and his mood rose on the spot after hearing this. That's great. On the day when the engagement is broken off, I will celebrate with a 10,000 gun blast and invite all the students in the school to witness that I have regained my freedom and finally got rid of this domineering big man like you. He was happily venting his emotions when he suddenly saw Chiyu falling straight down. No one went to pick up Chiyu. Like Jin Yao, everyone hates this arrogant and self-righteous young lady. Ning Jin, on the other hand, rushed forward immediately and nervously patted Chiyu's face. Miss, what's wrong with you? Jin Yao stepped forward and pulled her away with a cold face. It's probably just pretending. Ignore her and let's go. No. Ning Jin held his hand tightly and said in a very anxious tone, you have to send the lady to the hospital, otherwise she will die. How come she always repays kindness with kindness? She was so humiliated by Chiyu, but he still thought about her wholeheartedly. If you are too kind, you will suffer. Helplessness flashed across Jin Yao's face. Then it's for your sake. Chiyu was sent to the hospital. In less than half an hour, the person in charge of the Chi family came after hearing the news. The doctor was operating inside. The tall and handsome man looked at Jin Yao with a worried look on his face and asked him coldly, "Why did Qiyu faint?" Jin Yao has always been afraid of Qi He. When he saw his cold gaze, he felt a little lack of confidence for some reason. Although Qiyu's fainting had nothing to do with him, Qi He's eyes seemed to confirm that it was him who did something bad. Jin Yao hesitated for 2 seconds, and Ning Jin stepped forward to help him out. The sun was too strong in the afternoon. The lady probably suffered from a slight heatstroke, nothing serious. Qi He's eyes fell on her, equally cold and without warmth. "Are you a doctor?" His sarcasm made Ning Jin turn pale on the spot and shake her head. "I'm sorry, second master, I talked too much." Jin Yao couldn't see Ning Jin being wronged, so he carried the man's strong aura and said coldly, "She fainted on her own and it had nothing to do with anyone." Qi He's eyes were dark, filled with frightening anger. "Whether it has anything to do with it or not, your parents will have to explain it to me." Jin Yao was most annoyed when others used his parents to kidnap him. He wanted to argue with Qi He, but Ning Jin held his wrist. "Stop talking." Ning Jin used her eyes to signal him not to anger Qi He, as that would do no good. Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. Jin Yao was unconvinced and was about to speak when the door of the operating room opened. Ning Jin was more nervous than anyone else. She rushed to the doctor and asked anxiously, "Doctor, is my lady okay?" The doctor did not respond to her, but looked at Qi He. Qi He made a gesture, and the doctor followed him to the side. Jin Yao disagreed. "It's so serious, as if she is seriously ill." Ning Jin stood behind him, with a glimmer of light in his eyes. "Qiyu must not get into trouble, otherwise she will be very sad." When Qiyu woke up, it was already night. She was dazed and heard someone talking in the ward. At most half a year, her heart and lungs are weakening at a faster rate. If there is anything you want to do that has not yet been done, try to be satisfied. What half a year? I hope to extend her life as much as possible, at all costs. Qi He's voice. That's natural. Ah, it was originally discussing her condition. Does she have half a year to live? Qiyu was lying on the hospital bed, his expression was calm, and he had only one pair of eyes, showing deep despair. Why did God give her a body riddled with pain? It has been tormenting her for as long as she can remember. Qiyu is still young, only 17 years old this year. Others' lives have just begun, but she is forced to accept the arrival of death. Everything went wrong for her and she was unlucky everywhere, as if she was born a sinner with no justice from heaven and had to bear the malice from all over the world. Why target her like this? The water glass on the bedside was knocked to the ground, alarming Chiha, who was discussing the condition with the doctor. Qi He quickly walked to the bed, pushed Qiyu back down after he lifted the quilt and got out of bed, and coaxed, "Be good, you need to rest." Qiyu pushed his hand away and insisted on getting out of bed. Qi He doesn't allow it. The two were fighting, and Qiyu screamed angrily, opening his mouth and biting Qi He's hand hard. Qi He was in pain, but did not make a sound. He watched the girl's thin shoulders trembling slightly, a drop of hot tears falling on the back of her hand, pursed her thin lips, and held her in his arms. Qiyu clutched Qi He's clothes tightly and couldn't help but break down and cry loudly, "Uncle, save me. I don't want to die, I want to live well." Qi He patted her back and comforted her softly, "Uncle will not let you or die." End of chapter. The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened. Chapter 2, Break off the engagement with the Jin Fa. Chapter 2, Breaking off the engagement with the Jin family. Qiyu was so excited that he couldn't be coaxed at all. Qi He was worried that she would hurt her body by crying all the time, so she asked the doctor to give her a sedative. Qiyu opened his eyes again and saw a few more people in the ward. Jin and his wife brought Jin Yao over to apologize to Qiyu. Yao was confused for a moment, but he just said those words in his mind. Auntie has already scolded him. "You, sir, have a lot. For Auntie's sake, please forgive him. Women are so good at talking, and they are flawless in every aspect." He was clearly showing weakness, but he was actually forcing Qiyu to eat this shit. If she doesn't eat, she has no bearing. Qiyu smiled. She avoided the woman's extended hand and said in a cold tone, "Who are you? Why should I give you face?" As soon as these words came out, the room was filled with silence. Mrs. Jin's face was colorful and her expression was wonderful. Jin Yao's father coughed heavily and couldn't say much because Chi He was there. Jin Yao was furious, gnashing his teeth and glaring at Feng Tang. "You are so uneducated. Apologize to my mother." Chi Yu blinked his eyes and looked at Chi He innocently, pitifully. "Uncle," he said, "I was uneducated." As we all know, Chi Yu's parents died soon after she was born. Chi Yu was raised by Chi He. Jin Yao scolded two people in one sentence. Chi He's face turned cold. "Your Majesty's mouth is probably too much for your face." Mrs. Jin's heart skipped a beat, and she gave her angry-looking son a warning look, and quickly apologized to Chi He in a flattering way. "Mr. Chi, I'm really sorry. This brat talks so openly. I'll definitely teach him a lesson when I get back. You needs to recuperate, so we won't stay any longer. We'll set up a table in the hotel another day to make amends to you." She said goodbye to Chi Yu. Chi Yu suddenly became normal again. He waved his hand and said sweetly, "Uncle and Aunt, walk slowly." Before Jin Yao left, he gave Chi Yu a hard look and was extremely disgusted with her. Chi Yu didn't even look at him. She felt that Jin Yao never understood his position from beginning to end. The Jin family has fallen into decline. In recent years, they have only managed to maintain their appearance by climbing up to the Qi family and picking up the small fish and shrimps that leaked out from the fingers of the Qi family. To put it bluntly, the Jin family is selling their son for glory. If Jin Yao was smarter, even if he was pretending, he should have a better attitude towards Chi Yu. But he had a funny illusion that he and Chi Yu were in equal positions. This is hopelessly stupid. If Mrs. Jin hadn't been more sophisticated, she would go to Chi's house every year and festival to give her a lot of delicacies and supplements, and offer all kinds of flattery. Who is the Jin family? He is not worthy of being of the Chi family. Now it's better. Jin Yao is so shameless. Mrs. Jin doesn't know whether it's because the Jin family's business has improved in the past 2 years, and she feels that she can be on an equal footing with the Qi family, or something. Her words and deeds are becoming more and more arrogant. Chi Yu was thinking that it was time to kick the Jin family away. "What are you thinking about?" He poured a glass of water and handed it to Chi Yu. Chi Yu looked at the man who loved her dearly, shook his head, and pulled him to sit down on the bed. He didn't understand why, and the next second, the little girl's head rested on his shoulder. Chi Yu said, "Brother-in-law, please terminate the engagement with the Jin family." Something flashed in Chi He's eyes and quickly disappeared. He touched Chi Yu's head and smiled lovingly. "What's wrong? Are you still angry with Jin Yao? I'll find time to cure him and vent my anger on you." Chi Yu didn't bother to explain the bad relationship between Jin Yao and Ning Jin. Those two people didn't deserve to waste their saliva. "I don't like him at all, and Chi Yu said depressingly, "since you can't live more than half a year, don't drag others down. You are." Chi He's face suddenly darkened, and he didn't want to see her giving up on herself like this. "My uncle said that he would have someone cure you." Chi Yu has been hearing these words since he was 6 years old. She was tired of hearing it. Chi Yu didn't want to blame his uncle for breaking his promise. He loved and doted on her, gave her the best material things in the world, tolerated her bad temper, and pampered her like a princess. It can only be said that it was fate. God couldn't stand Chi Yu and wanted her to die. Chi Yu will direct all his negative emotions towards outsiders, but he will only not lose his temper at Chi He. She brings out a smile, and her delicate and beautiful face is a masterpiece favored by God. Delicate and bright, noble and beautiful. Chi He's deep eyes darkened. Chi Yu forced himself to smile and said, "I have always believed in my uncle. He stayed with me for 2 days, and I think he has a lot of things to do in the company. Chi Hui's flight in the afternoon, with him here, I can go back to the company with peace of mind. Chi Hui is the bodyguard assigned by Chi He to Chi Yu. He went out on business a few days ago and just came back today." Chi He saw that Chi Yu was in a bad mood and decided to give her some private time to digest her emotions. "Uncle, I listen to you. The hospital is boring. Do you want to find something for you to relieve your boredom? Chi-yu is absent-minded, then let's find some books and read them. Good. After Chi-he left, Chi-yu fell into a deep sleep in melancholy. Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. She had a terrible nightmare and sat up in bed, sweating profusely, gasping for air. His face was cold, and those were tears of fright. The ward was silent and dark, like a cold coffin. Chi-yu got out of bed in the dark and turned on all the lights in the room. The daylight-like interior finally gave her a sense of security. There was no one in the room, and it felt chilly to the bone. Chi-yu called Chi-hui, thinking that he was not in the room but waiting outside. As a result, his response was not heard. Chi-yu's eyebrows wrinkled little by little. She clearly remembered that Chi-hui's flight was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He should have come to the hospital long ago. What is the situation now? The unread message gave her the answer. 40 minutes ago, Chi-hui sent a message to Chi-yu. There was an urgent matter that he had to deal with. This message was more of a unilateral notification than a request for instructions from Chi-yu. If I didn't get a reply from Chi-yu, at least make a phone call. Our bodyguard, sir, doesn't have this awareness. I don't know if it's an illusion, but Chi-yu always feels that this bodyguard who has been with him for 7 years has become more and more lazy in the past year. Is he being arrogant based on the only dignity she gave him? Or does he think he is barely human? Chi-yu was angry, but did not call to question. She was waiting for him to come back, and she would help him recall the consequences of his own actions. There are several hardcover books placed in front of the hospital bed. Chi-yu glanced at it casually, then looked away boredly. She said she wanted to read a book, but she was just perfunctory. As for entertainment, it is better to play 2 games. Chi-yu thought so and went to get his mobile phone. Suddenly, something flashed. She looked intently and saw that the book in the middle was emitting a dazzling golden light. Chi-yu is interested. Could it be that Chi-he has prepared a surprise for her? She pulled out the book and found strangely that it had no cover and no title. Out of curiosity, Chi-yu opened the cover of the book and started reading. At first, Chi-yu wanted to use it to pass the time. 10 minutes later, her expression changed. The speed of browsing quickened. In another half hour, Chi-yu's world collapsed. This book records a shocking secret in an extremely absurd way. Chi-yu is not the eldest lady of the Chi family. The cook's daughter Ning-jin, whom she hated so much, was the real lady of the Chi family. End of chapter. The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened. Chapter 3, The Truth That Cannot Be Told. Chapter 3, The Truth That Cannot Be Told. When people joke that Chi-yu and Ning-jin were born on the same day, same year, same month, but have different fates. Chi-yu felt lucky in his heart. She was born with many illnesses and disasters, and was on the verge of death countless times. If it weren't for a prominent family background, those expensive treatment costs would be insignificant to the Chi family. If she had been born in an ordinary family, she would have been abandoned by her parents long ago. Chi-yu never imagined that she could actually have a healthy body and grow up safely and happily. Instead of having to worry all day long about being kidnapped, a flower pot falling from the sky and falling on her, an accident happening out of nowhere, fish bones stuck in her throat when eating fish, being followed by a pervert. It's Ikega. It was he who carried Chi-yu back to the Chi family, protected Ning-jin from disaster, and served as Ning-jin's scapegoat for 17 years. It's not that Chi-yu is neurotic, blindly and ridiculously believing in a book, and concluding that his uncle who has doted on him and loved him for many years is a devil. In fact, this book is meticulous and impeccably records everything that happened around Chi-yu in the past 17 years, including some of her little-known secrets. It is like God overlooking the world, not only knowing the past, but also predicting the future. The book clearly shows that Chi-yu will die on his 18th birthday. When Chi-yu saw that line of words, he suddenly remembered what the doctor said. There's still half a year left. If there's anything you want to do that hasn't been done yet, try to be satisfied with it. Chi-yu felt cold all over. I thought it was a trick of fate, but I didn't expect it to be a human plan. Chi-he, her dear brother-in-law. How cruel can he be to do such a heartless thing? Chi-yu forced himself to calm down. She told herself over and over again that the top priority was not to alert the snake, but to find out who her biological parents were and where the black-hearted Taoist priest who told Ning Jin's fortune was. She would do everything possible to make him undo the curse on her. Chiyu can't stay calm at all. No one can pretend to be calm after learning that their life has entered a countdown. Unless he doesn't want to live in the first place. Chi Yusheng's will is strong. She can't wait for her own investigation and must go to Chi-He to find out now. The woman next to him twisted her waist like a water snake and pressed against Chi-He. Her weak and boneless arms climbed up his shoulders. Seeing that he did not show any sign of boredom, she felt happy and boldly moved her face towards him. Chi-He, who had a gentle expression just a moment ago, suddenly changed his expression. He held the woman's chin, seemed to squint at her for a moment, and then pushed her far away. Poor quality product, the woman heard him frown and whisper. Then she was kicked out. The third son of the Wei family held an innocent female student in his arms. He tilted his head inadvertently. Seeing that Chi-He was empty, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and joked, "Master He, I'm a pretty girl in the club, at least give me some face." Chi-He was uninterested. If he hadn't accepted the appointment in advance and hadn't come, he would have planned to go to the hospital to accompany Chi-Yu tonight. The child was sensitive, and Chi-Hui was too sullen, like a stone, and couldn't understand others. She shouldn't have been left alone at all. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that he was at a loss on this trip. Chi-He couldn't help but have a hint of anger and displeasure in his voice. A synthetic product, making a living by selling laughs, what kind of dignity do you need? He was rarely this aggressive. Wei-san was stunned, thinking of something, and the smile on his lips became meaningful. It was my slip of the tongue, so I will be fined 3 drinks. He went to pour the wine, but Chi-He buttoned up his suit and stood up. Tonight is all mine. You guys can play. I have something to do, so I'll take the first step. Wei-san was about to say something when a familiar bell rang. Someone was singing nearby, and the broken gong's voice made people's ears buzz. But strangely, Wei-san heard the ringtone. As one of Chi-He's few friends, Wei-san knew that this ringtone only belonged to one person. The cold expression on Chi-He's face melted after receiving Chi-Yu's call. He smiled, his handsome and chiseled face looking at the innocent female student standing aside. You were. When the gentle voice sounded, Chi-He had already walked out of the box. Chi-Yu's voice was the same as usual. When she asked where Chi-He was, Chi-He subconsciously lied. At the company. I'll go find you. Chi-He's eyelids twitched, and his tone suddenly became stern. You are still sick. You will have a major operation in 2 days. You can't run around. Be obedient and go back to the ward. My uncle will go to the hospital to find you now. Chi-Yu lied, I'm already in the car. In fact, she just got off the elevator. Where is Chi-Hui? Chi-He's voice deepened, and he was obviously angry. Now is not the time to deal with Chi-Hui. Chi-Yu continued to lie, I pushed him away. Uncle, wait for me, I will be at the company soon. There was really nothing he could do with her. It takes at least half an hour to get back to the company from the club, and the hospital is only 20 minutes away from the company. Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. Chi-He couldn't go back in time to tell his lie, so he had to confess to Chi-Yu, I'm at the Long nightclub. Ask the driver to drive slower, I'll wait for you here, don't be in a hurry. Chi-Yu didn't understand why Chi-He lied, but she couldn't care about that much at the moment. After assuring Chi-Ha that she would pay attention to safety, she hung up the phone. 15 minutes later, downstairs at the Long nightclub. Chi-Yu ran towards Chi-He with the book in his hand. She ran so fast that she almost fell. The emotions that were well controlled along the way completely collapsed the moment he saw Chi-He. Chi-He was nervous about Chi-Yu and walked towards her quickly, I'm not telling you to slow down. After seeing Chi-Yu's red eyes, he swallowed all the remaining words. Chi-He's face darkened, who bullied you? Isn't it you, you kidnapper? Chi-Yu waved away Chi-He's extended hand, pointed at the book, and asked him sternly, how do you explain this? Chi-He looked at the book in her hand. Aurora Flame, this year's top literary award winner, has a content that is not difficult to understand, and the article is humorous and suitable for reading by all ages. He thought Chiyu would like it, so he specifically asked his subordinates to buy a copy and send it to her. I didn't expect to make her unhappy. My uncle made a mistake in his judgment. Yu doesn't like it. Can I change it to something else for you? If a normal person lost his temper with Chi-hee over a book, he would have been angry for a long time. Only Chi-yu could be coaxed patiently by him. The evidence is conclusive. How come he still has the nerve to pretend to be stupid with her? Chi-yu was going crazy and slammed the book into Chi-hee's arms. His voice was extremely sharp because of his anger. Chi-hee. What a? You, why do you want me to be a? I want to you. Chi-hee. You are committing a crime. You bastard, why do you want me to be Ning Jin's scapegoat? I'm going to call the police on you. Chi-hee, what's wrong with you? A prank? Chi-yu, who was in a rage, didn't notice anything was wrong. She glared at Chi-hee angrily, but saw that he was still stubborn and refused to admit his evil deeds. His head felt hot, and he raised his hand and slapped him. Chi-hee tilted his head and was stunned for half a minute before turning his face, frowning slightly, looking at Chi-yu who was obviously abnormal, and asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" Chi-yu collapsed. She couldn't bear it anymore and burst into tears. I just want an answer. Chi-hee, can you stop pretending? Tell me, who are my biological parents? Chi suddenly realized that something seemed wrong. She looked at Chi-hee who looked obscure and tried to open her mouth. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Does Ning Jin know that she is the eldest lady of the Chi family? Somehow, there seemed to be a force controlling Chi-yu, preventing her from telling the contents of the book. End of chapter. The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened. Chapter 4, Uncle is so kind. Chapter 4, Uncle is so kind. The hope that had just been raised a short time ago was extinguished. Chi-yu didn't understand why it was him. There are so many people in the world, why am I so unlucky? Go back to the hospital with your uncle. After a long silence, Chi-hee stretched out his hand to Chi-yu, with a hint of comfort in his voice. Although he didn't know what happened, Chi-yu's condition was obviously not right. Chi-hee felt that he had to take Chi-yu back for a full body examination. Chi-yu is not sick, she just knows the truth about being deceived. Chi-yu hasn't decided yet what to do next. But at this moment, she didn't want to see Chi-hee's thoughtful face again. Chi-yu backed up and turned around, but almost ran into a speeding car. If Chi-hee hadn't pulled her back forcefully, a car accident would have been inevitable. The Audi owner lowered the window and was originally going to curse, but after seeing Chi-hee and Chi-yu, he changed his face to a respectful one. Sir, Mississippi. Chi-hui was sitting in the car, looking a little uncomfortable. Chi-yu saw the sleeping Ning Jin in the passenger seat and instantly understood what the important matter Chi-hui was talking about. The anger that had nowhere to vent all night finally found an outlet. Chi-yu asked Chi-hui to get out of the car. Chi-hui looked embarrassed. Miss, Ning Jin has been drugged. You are my bodyguard. Go to hell. Chi-yu roared at him angrily. Her anger came so suddenly that not only Chi-hui, but also Chi-hee was frightened to the point of twitching. Chi-hui has been with Chi-yu for so many years and has seen her be charming, domineering and arrogant, but he has never seen her get so angry. He didn't dare to say any more, opened the car door and got out. As soon as his feet landed, he was slapped twice. Chi-hui lowered his head and suffered without any complaints. Do you know why I hit you? Chi-yu said indifferently. Chi-hui replied, I shouldn't kill first and then report. Originally this was the standard answer. But after Chi-yu saw the book, the answer changed. As a bodyguard, your duty is only one, to protect the safety of your employer. My brother-in-law pays you a salary to protect me, not to do private work for you, do you understand? Ning Jin was almost given frivolous drugs, but Chi-hui came to the rescue. When it came to Chi-yu's mouth, it became an insignificant sentence of, doing private work. Chi-hui clenched his fists, hiding the dissatisfaction in his heart, and said solemnly, I understand. Chi didn't bother to care whether he was willing to do it or whether he was doing it voluntarily or against his will. She was tired after this trip and asked Chi Hui to take her back to the hospital. Chi Hui opened the back seat door for her. Chi stood and looked at him with a half-smile. Are those 2 slaps not painful enough? Are you letting me sit in the back of my car? What she meant was to get Ning Jin out of the car. Chi Hui tightened her grip on the car door, and her handsome and resolute face twisted slightly because of her patience. Miss, Ning Jin also needs to go to the hospital, why don't we go together? Chi Yu interrupted him impatiently, I'll give you 3 seconds to throw her down. Chi Hui froze in place. Let Ning Jin get out of the car. Chi He, who had been the backdrop for a long time, spoke up. Under Chi Hui's disbelieving gaze, he added, I'll take her to the hospital. Chi Yu sneered, Uncle is so kind. It's really disgusting for her to be so unrelenting. However, Chi He did not get angry. Chi Yu wanted to make him angry, so that she would have reason to ridicule him for treating the cook's daughter better than his niece. Chi He is always much more tolerant of Chi Yu than others. If there is something you doesn't want to let my uncle know, then my uncle won't ask about it for now and will visit you another day. Chi Yu responded by slamming the car door and urging Chi Hui to drive in a cold tone. After making sure that Chi Yu's car was gone, Chi He drove the driver out of the car, stared at Ning Jin's calm and uneasy face, and said coldly, How long are you going to pretend? Ning Jin opened her eyes and seemed to be frozen by the cold expression on Chi He's face. She shrank her neck and shouted timidly, Uncle. If Chi Yu were here right now, he would definitely be even more heartbroken. About half a year ago, Ning Jin learned from Chi He that she was not the cook's daughter, but the eldest lady of the Chi family. She was ecstatic at the time, thinking that she would immediately fly onto a branch and become a phoenix. Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. As a result, Chi He told her that she would have to pretend for another year. The Chi family will not announce her true identity until she turns 18. Why is there such a deadline? Under Ning Jin's repeated questioning, Chi He revealed the long-lasting truth. Ning Jin was not grateful to Chi Yu at all. Yes, she helped herself to avoid disasters for 17 years, but she also enjoyed the pampered life of a wealthy lady for 17 years. Looking back on myself, I have been working as a servant and cook since I was a child, and although I have no worries about food and clothing, compared with Chi Yu, who is pampered and spends all his food and clothing on famous brands, I feel like the ugly duckling next to the white swan. So humble and shabby. Ning Jin felt aggrieved. Not willing to give in. She couldn't bear it for half a year and couldn't wait to gradually replace Chi Yu's position. You knew Chi Hui was coming back today, so you staged this on purpose. Chi He stated a fact without giving Ning Jin a chance to refute, and then asked her, Do you remember what I told you half a year ago? Ning Jin pretended to be well behaved and said, You asked me to be patient and not show any clues. Uncle, actually you misunderstood me. I was tricked into singing by my classmates. They tampered with the drinks. I was afraid, so I asked Chi Hui for help, Seeing Chi He's unmoved cold face, she bit her lip and added, You can't blame me. It was Brother Chi Hui who told me that as long as I am in danger, he will appear to protect me at any time. Chi He gave Ning Jin a chance. Originally, as long as she admitted her mistake and said that she was obsessed with things for a while, he was prepared to convince himself not to pursue the case. After all, they are adolescent children, their behavior is childish, and they always want to do something to gain attention, which is understandable. But Ning Jin seemed to take herself too seriously. Who is Chi Hui? Chi He asked. Ning Jin was not aware of the danger yet and said innocently, Brother Chi Hui is my uncle's son. Who is he responsible for protecting? Chi Yu. What is Chi Yu's status now? Ning Jin realized it later and sat up slightly, with anger flashing in her eyes, Miss Chi family. What is your identity? Ning Jin gritted her teeth, the cook's daughter. So dash. Chi He looked at the niece who was related to him by blood. There was no warmth in his eyes, but only a cold warning. I'll repeat it to you again. In the past 6 months, you'd better be honest and don't get into trouble. Otherwise, who the eldest lady of the Chi family is ultimately a matter of my words. What do you think? Ning Jin completely woke up from her drunken ecstasy and apologized to Chi-hee in panic. I'm sorry, uncle, I will never dare to do it again. Please forgive me this time. It's really something that's not on the table. Chi-hee ignored her impatiently and asked the driver to drive back to Chi's house. End of chapter. The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened Chapter 5, angry to the point of vomiting blood, and Chapter 5, so angry that I vomited blood and fainted. Chi-yu was reading the book all the way. She carefully recalled Chi-hee's various reactions, and suddenly thought of a possibility, maybe Chi-hee was not pretending. When he saw the book, he had a surprised reaction, but the reaction was not strong. What surprised him was that Chi-yu came to him with a book, not the content of the book itself. Could it be that the book he saw in his eyes was not the same book as the book in Chi-yu's eyes? Back at the hospital, Chi-yu handed the book to Chi-hui and asked him to read the contents. What Chi-hui read was the content of Aurora Flame, which was completely different from what Chi-yu saw. So it can be explained why Chi-hui reacted that way. It seemed that there was an invisible force preventing Chi-yu from telling the truth. What does it want to do? Inexplicably, Chi-yu was allowed to know the cruel truth, but she was not allowed to escape her fate, so she could only die for Ning Jin in helplessness. Chi-yu was like an anxious trapped beast, trying to tell Chi-hui the truth. The previous scene in front of Chi-hui repeated itself, and Chi-hui looked at her confused. Even ask the lady if you are sick. Chi-yu can be fine. She could definitely grow up like Ning Jin without any illness or disaster. It was Chi-hee who stole her away and acted as Ning Jin's scapegoat. It's better not to let her know the truth, then she will die in ignorance. It's better than now, knowing that he is burdened with man-made misfortune, but unable to tear it off, and can only wait to die in despair. Chi-yu felt as if there was a big stone on her heart, so heavy that she couldn't breathe. My chest was swollen, my whole body was cold, and I was stunned. I stared at the book in my hand and gritted my teeth. Chi-hui noticed something was wrong with her and tentatively asked, "Miss?" Chi-yu clenched his hands tightly, his eyes widened, and his whole body was shaking. Chi-hui went to help her. She raised her head and looked at him, and suddenly a mouthful of blood spurted out from her mouth. Then he closed his eyes and fainted. Chi-hui went to call the doctor with blood on his face. The attending doctor felt Chi-yu's pulse and found that it was so weak that it almost stopped beating. A panicked expression appeared on his usually calm face. After half an hour of rescue, Chi-yu woke up with a thrill. Chi-hee learned that Chi-yu was vomiting blood and comatose, and rushed to the hospital as soon as possible. Chi-yu opened his eyes and let him ask questions, ignoring him and just lying on the bed crying. As a last resort, Chi-hee had no choice but to call a doctor and give her a sedative. What did Chi-yu do after he came back? Chi-hee called Chi-hui outside the ward to ask. Chi-hui talked about the book called Aurora Flame. The eldest lady asked me to read the first page. After reading half a page, she asked me to stop. Then she took the book away and then vomited blood. Chi-yu has read the entire book, Aurora Flame, which is nothing more than a story about interesting things that happened to a group of Antarctic scientific expedition members during their expedition. He didn't understand what was wrong with this book that made Chi-yu so irritated. Chi-hee stayed by the hospital bed and read the book again overnight. Chi-yu woke up in the early morning, and when he opened his eyes, he saw Chi-hee leaning on the seat and dozing off. He was really a tall man, leaning on the wooden chair, looking very aggrieved. Before, Chi-yu would have felt sorry for him, but now he only felt indifferent in his heart. That night, Chi-yu didn't sleep very peacefully. She kept waking up and falling asleep. When she was awake, she was thinking about how she should face Chi-hee next. Facing the culprit who single-handedly caused her tragic life, she wished he would die in front of her. But the reality is cruel. Until he finds his biological parents and that Taoist priest, Chi-yu has to pretend to know nothing. Otherwise, once Chi-hee becomes aware of her intentions, Chi-yu may not survive even half a year, and he may be secretly dealt with. Thinking of his madness last night, Chi-yu couldn't help but feel scared. If it weren't for that weird silence, she might be lying in the morgue downstairs now. As far as she knew, the reason why Chi-Yu was able to bring the already weakened Chi group to its current height in just over 10 years was not just due to his iron-blooded skills. Chi-Yu didn't know how much blood was on his hands. But the outside world is spreading rumors that any company that goes against Chi will end up badly. Chi-Yu didn't believe that those who died for no reason were all unlucky and had accidents. She had to get herself back to normal and find the truth from Chi-Yu quietly. When Chi-Yu woke up, he was greeted by Chi-Yu's smiling face. "Did Uncle stay with me all night?" Chi-Yu's brows are bright and his eyes are clear. He is completely different from yesterday when he was roaring and snarling with a cold eyebrow and a crazy look. Chi-Yu nodded first, and then cared about Chi-Yu's body. After hearing her say that she was much better, he hesitated and asked, "Last night?" Chi-Yu took over the topic and looked a little uncomfortable. "Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. I had a nightmare last night. When I woke up, I found that there was no one around me. In panic, I ran to my uncle in a daze and got angry. I'm sorry, uncle, you blame me. In this way, it's all Chi-Yu's fault. He couldn't bear to blame Chi-Yu, it's my uncle who didn't think well and should accompany you. I will have the surgery tomorrow and my uncle will be watching outside the operating room. You doesn't have to be afraid." He was so considerate and gentle that Chi-Yu couldn't help but feel in a trance. If the content in the book hadn't been too real, she really wouldn't have suspected that Chi-Yu's love for her was all fake. After all, there is nothing wrong with him from his eyes to his expression. But no matter how much you pretend, you are still acting after all. Chi-Yu's eyes sparkled, as if Chi-Yu's words gave her a great sense of security. She said coquettishly to Chi-Yu, "My uncle is the best to me." In fact, Chi-Yu was not worried at all that the operation would fail. Because the book said that the operation was successful. It allowed Chi-Yu's dying body to survive for another half a year. Chi-Yu was punished. Chi-Yu moved his hand and slapped him with the 10 Commandments whip. When Chi-Yu returned to the hospital, her steps were shaky, her face was pale, and she could hardly stand straight. Chi-Yu looked on coldly, feeling only regretful. Chi-Yu took action first, otherwise he would have to give Chi-Yu a beating himself when she was discharged from the hospital. This is not the first time Chi-Yu has neglected his duties in the past 6 months. He was so absent-minded that he seemed to have forgotten his name and identity. If it weren't for thinking about his past, he would still be loyal. According to Chi-Yu's temper, a whip would not be enough, but he would be punished no matter what so that he could not get out of bed for 10 days and a half. The surgery was put on the schedule, and Chi-Yu's mentality was better than ever before. After getting off the operating table, I didn't cry as usual. Chi-Yu praised Chi-Yu for growing up, but Chi-Yu just smiled, and the smile didn't even reach his eyes. On the 3rd postoperative day, Chi-Yu was lying on the hospital bed, flipping through the book, slowly scrolling through the timeline, when he suddenly discovered to his horror that the criminal gang that kidnapped him 5 years ago was released from prison. End of chapter. The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened. Chapter 6, Can't Escape Being Kidnapped. Chapter 6 Can't Escape Being Kidnapped. The summer when he was 12 years old was a nightmare that would linger in Chi-Yu's life. In the abandoned waterworks, rats scurried quickly underfoot, and a few dried moths hung from the spider webs in the corner. The kidnappers gathered together shirtless to play cards, swearing in their genitals, smelling of feet and sweat. For Chi-Yu, who has a deep misophobia, that scene was really disgusting. However, these external factors are nothing. Even after the kidnappers learned that the Chi family would pay a high ransom, they still frantically tortured the hostage Chi-Yu inhumanely. It took 7 days before Chi-Yu was rescued. Her body was injured in many places, her spirit was greatly stimulated, and she almost went crazy. The psychiatrist is still doing regular checkups on Chi-Yu to this day. Chi-Yu didn't expect that the group would be released from prison in just 5 years. Back then, they were only a little short of getting the 60 million ransom. It was Chi-Yu who stole one of the people's mobile phones and called the police, so they lost both their lives and money and were imprisoned. Judging from that man's cruelty, if he is released from prison, he will definitely try his best to seek revenge on himself. Although the book did not mention that Chi-Yu would be retaliated against, she was still very uneasy. The sudden and terrifying news put Chi Yu on high alert. While she ordered Chi Hui to follow her every step of the way, she bit her fingers nervously and called Chi He. Chi Yu used the excuse that he had a nightmare that the group was released from prison, and asked Chi He to arrange 4 strong bodyguards for him. Chi He actually learned the news earlier than Chi Yu. In order not to affect Chi Yu's postoperative recovery, he kept it secret from her. The bodyguards have been found a long time ago, and Chi He from Chi Hui also greeted him in advance and told him to be in high spirits. The hospital did not feel safe after all, and Chi Yu desperately wanted to return home. As the only person who knew what Chi Yu had gone through back then, Chi He completely understood why she was so scared. He came forward to discuss with the doctor and officially let Chi Yu go home from the hospital tomorrow morning. Chi Yu only needs to wait for 1 more day. I don't know if Chi Yu feels relieved that he can finally go home, is excited, or what. Her heart had been beating very fast all day. Chi Hui guarded Chi Yu in the hospital for 10 days. During this period, he was very careful and did not see even a fly, let alone a suspicious person. In his heart, he disapproved of Chi Yu's excessive reaction, but he didn't dare to show it at all. Chi Yu's eldest lady's temper has become increasingly unstable in the past 2 years. It's best not to make her angry. Chi Hui, who was thinking this way, received a video sent to him by Ning Jin that night when he was bored. In the city's Grand Theater Opera Hall, Ning Jin held the violin in her hand, waiting for the opportunity to perform on stage for the first time. I'm so nervous. It would be great if Brother Chi Hui could be my audience. Then I would be very happy. The girl was wearing a pink evening dress and light makeup, looking much more beautiful than usual. The deep expectation revealed in Ning Jin's eyes made Chi Hui's heart turn into tender water. He once heard Ning Jin say that she could play the violin, but he never had the chance to appreciate it. Chi Yu has fallen asleep. Maybe because she knew she could go home tomorrow, she slept so soundly that she didn't even turn over for such a long time. Chi Hui was ready to make a move. He told himself he would only be gone for 3 hours. When the time is up, come back immediately. Chi Hui deceived the bodyguard and drove out of the hospital on the pretext of going downstairs to smoke. The moment he drove out of the hospital gate, a van passed by the Audi he was driving. Chi Hui had no idea that from this moment on, the fate of the rest of his life would slide into the abyss. Before discharge, Miss Chi needs to do one last checkup. The doctor wearing a mask and a white coat came to the ward and explained this to the bodyguard at the door. The bodyguard stared at the name tag on his chest and said thoughtfully, Dr. Shen's voice seems different from the daytime. The man rubbed his nose with a very natural attitude. Hi, I got caught in the rain this afternoon and have a bit of a cold. It sounds very nasal, right? The bodyguard didn't speak, his eyes swept over the man's face. The man smiled, and the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes were exactly the same as Dr. Shen who had been examining Chi Yu. The bodyguard lowered his guard and smiled, our work is special, I hope Dr. Shen understands. As you should, it's your duty. As he spoke, he walked to the bedside. He called Chi Yu several times, but Chi Yu didn't respond. It's broken, the man shouted nervously. When the bodyguard heard the noise, he ran into the room and asked nervously, what's wrong? Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. The man lowered his head, with a strange look in his eyes. He took out a bottle of spray from his pocket and sprayed it into the faces of the 4 bodyguards. The bodyguards couldn't even struggle and fell to the ground in a daze. 2 hours ago, Chi Yu got a needle. The nurse's hands were particularly steady and her skills were obviously better than usual. Chi Yu also praised her for her extraordinary performance. More than 10 minutes later, a strong feeling of sleepiness came over me. Chi Yu fell asleep, fell into a coma. The man got Chi Yu out of the ward, and someone came to help him downstairs and quickly carried Chi Yu into the car. 9 p.m., the bodyguard woke up from the ward and searched the entire hospital, but there was no trace of Chi Yu. That group of people deliberately disguised themselves to avoid surveillance and were very aware of counter-reconnaissance. When the bodyguard called Chi He with a blank face, he had just finished socializing and was about to rush to the next venue. When he learned that Chi Yu was missing, Chi He's face darkened on the spot. He completely ignored the fact that there was a big shot with him and said, "There is an emergency at home," and left in the car. Grand Theater. Ning Jin's performance was perfect. Chi Hui gave her a bouquet of flowers after the curtain call. The people in the concert troupe all cast envious glances at Ning Jin, joking that her boyfriend was really handsome. Ning Jin held the flowers and smiled shyly, but said, "Don't be joking. This is my very good brother, not my boyfriend." When Chi Hui heard this, his eyes dimmed for a moment. But the next second, I heard Ning Jin say in a disappointed tone, "Brother Chi Hui may like someone else." Chi Hui felt anxious and hurriedly retorted, "I don't like other people." Everyone was making noises, telling them to just stay together. Ning Jin just smiled, enjoying the feeling of being in the spotlight. As for what Chi Hui thinks, she doesn't care at all. Chi Hui is just a tool for Ning Jin. When she needed him, she could lure him over with just a few words. She didn't need him, so she dismissed him with just a few words. Chi Hui is a fool, he doesn't know that he is being played, and he takes the bait every time. This is the first time Ning Jin has performed on stage with the ensemble since she joined the ensemble department of small high school. She asked Chi Hui to come over. In addition to giving her a good face, she also told the ensemble in disguise that she was very popular. The image of the goddess needs to be erected step by step. In the front, there was the schoolboy Jin Yao who stood up for her to fight Chiyu, and in the back there was a handsome man who presented her with flowers. After today, Ning Jin's reputation in school will only grow. Beyond Chiyu is just around the corner. End of chapter. The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened. Chapter 7, bring them back with all their beards in. Chapter 7, all must be brought back in full. After bidding farewell to her classmates, Ning Jin got into the car and pretended to be worried. "Brother Chi Hui, is it really okay for you to sneak out? I'm worried that the lady will blame you if she finds out." Chi Hui smiled and reassured her, "It's okay. Miss, will she be able to?" Before he finished speaking, he called. Chi Hui's eyelids twitched, he calmed down and pressed answer, "Mr. Dash. You bastard. If there is anything wrong with Chiyu, I will ask you to go down and bury her with her." Chi Hui has not seen Chi Hafa so angry for many years. Through the phone, he could imagine Chi Hi's furious rage. Chi Hui asked with a tight throat, "What's wrong, miss?" There was silence in response to him. Chi Hi has hung up the phone. Cold sweat climbed up Chi Hui's back. He still remembered that the last time Chi Hi got angry was when Chiyu was kidnapped. Chi Hui could almost foresee his own end. He would have to kneel down to thank Chi Hi Qing Rao even if his skin was peeled and cramped. "Brother Chi Hui." Ning Jin called Chi Hui several times before getting his response, "Xiao Jin, I will take you back." Ning Jin saw his frown and thought about what he asked, and guessed that something must have happened to Chiyu. She gloated that it would be best for Chiyu to stay in the hospital until his death this time, so as to avoid the trouble of going back to school to find her. Airport. As soon as the man came out of the ticket gate, he caused a sensation throughout the airport. "It's Hanin. Oh. Hanin, I love you." A group of fans holding banners and lights swarmed towards Chi Chao. The handsome eyebrows hidden under the hat were raised. Chi Chao raised his hand helplessly and explained to this group of enthusiastic fans, "I'm sorry, you got the wrong person." Just now on the plane, the flight attendant admitted that he was wrong and asked him to help him sign. "I purposely borrowed a mask and put it on, but I didn't expect to be mistaken again. Simply outrageous. Hanin has become humorous. Hanin, this is a letter I wrote for you, as well as a handmade gift, please accept it. Why isn't the agent here? Can you take off Hanin's mask? Woohoo, he's so handsome. I'm going to faint from how handsome he is." In order to prove his identity, Chi Chao could only pull down his mask. A handsome face similar to the popular actor Chi Han was revealed, and the fan group that had been noisy just now suddenly fell silent. A heated discussion ensued. "What? You actually admitted your mistake. Wow, he looks so much like Hanin, they are almost like brothers. Why, he is even more handsome than Han Han. Are all the amateurs so good now? It's true. He's so handsome that his legs are weak, his nose is so straight, and his jawline is absolutely beautiful. After receiving the compliment, Chi Chao smiled at the two young ladies and said thank you, which was followed by many screams. After finally breaking out of the flash, Chi Chao looked at the time, which was 10 o'clock in the evening. There was heavy rain in the imperial capital and the flight was delayed for 6 hours. I was supposed to get off the plane normally and go to report to Chi-hee, but it was delayed like this. At this time, we can only go to the hotel to stay. Chi Chao took a taxi and was about to tell the driver the location when his cell phone rang. It's Chi-hee. Ever since an important branch of the Chi family was established in the imperial capital, Chi Chao and his brothers went there to take charge and have not been back for 2 years. His eyebrows relaxed and his voice was smiling, boss dash. Chi-hee on the other end didn't have time to chat with him, and issued a hurried order. You are disappeared. It was the group of people who did it 5 years ago. We currently know their hiding place. The leadership team in the city has recently changed. It is not convenient for the police station to carry out a high-profile operation. You can only handle this matter, guy. Everything is ready for you, the car is parked in front of the company. As he spoke, Chi Chao's expression had turned solemn. After digesting the information in Chi-hee's words, he heard his Shenhua Wanjuan's instructions, Chi Dynasty, be sure to bring Yuer back in full. Chi Chao said, boss, don't worry, I promise not to let the lady get even a hair damaged. Chi-hee selected 4 young boys from the orphanage to train. Among the 4 people, Chi Hui is the most steady and Chi Chao is the most naughty. But over the years, Chi Hui, who seems to be the calmest, is the least reliable, while the cynical Chi Chao is the most reliable. Chi Yu was woken up by a basin of cold water. Her head was still a little dazed, and there were water droplets on her eyelashes. It took her a long time to blink before she could clearly see the person in front of her. Just one look and she almost screamed. The source of nightmares over the years was looking at her with a ferocious smile, little princess, we meet again. Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. Chi Yu wanted to escape, but found that his hands and feet were tightly tied. She could only stare wide-eyed as the man reached out to touch her face. Chi Yu almost felt sick and turned his face to hide. The next moment, the man's palm, wrapped in a strong wind, came to greet her face. A solid slap made Chi Yu fall to the ground. Bitch! The man looked like he was crazy, kicked Chi Yu the waist, and yelled, just like your mother, a money-minded bitch. Chi Yu shrank his body and endured the man's beating. 5 years ago, she learned through inhumane torture that the man was her mother's first love. In order to become a wealthy wife in a wealthy family, her mother dumped her passionate boyfriend and married into the Chi family. The man had a paranoid personality and had been entangled with her for many years until Chi Yu's mother died in a car accident. After repeatedly failing to start a business, he became cynical and finally set his sights on Chi Yu. After 5 years, the man no longer tortured Chi Yu slowly. Because Chi Yu made him serve 5 years in prison, he was hysterical and punched and kicked Chi Yu just to vent his anger. Chi Yu fainted from the severe pain and was woken up by the man pouring cold water on him. The man pushed the wet hair away from her face with his hands and put on a gentle face, you look so much like your mother, both beautiful. When Chi Yu heard this, a sarcastic smile appeared at the corner of his broken mouth. She laughed out loud, her sarcastic voice echoing in the abandoned house, stimulating the man's sensitive nerves. Shut up. The man slapped Chi Yu, held her chin and asked insidiously, why are you laughing? Chi Yu spat blood on his face, you are an idiot. A man's first love is Ning Jin's mother, so how come she looks so similar to Chi Yu? The man was irritated and was about to take action when his eyes fell on Chi Yu's face. The water droplets flowed from Chi Yu's fair and delicate cheeks to the lotus root-like chin, and disappeared into the snow-white collarbone in a blink of an eye. The wound did not damage her beauty, but the blood at the corner of her mouth added a unique beauty to her. That clings to a dragon and a phoenix and ruins my feelings. In the abandoned village that had just been demolished, there were no homes for dozens of miles around, so no one would come to save her. But if you give up, you really can only wait for death. The few people guarding outside the door heard the scream and exchanged obscene looks in unison. Speaking of which, this girl is getting more and more beautiful as she grows. It makes me feel itchy. This rich lady must taste better than the princess in KTV, right? Nonsense. That figure, that tender skin that can pinch water, nothing can compare to that cheap guy. The few people talked more and more obscenely, and suddenly a deep voice came from next to them, "Brother, lend me a hand." End of chapter. The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened. Chapter 8, she is a delicate little girl. Chapter 8, she is a cute little girl. The man who was in high spirits took out the lighter without thinking, pressed his hand on the switch, and died under the muzzle of the black hole before he could exert any force. In the dark night, only a few insignificant muffled sounds were heard. The man in the room was in a state of excitement when his calf suddenly suffered severe pain and he screamed and fell to the ground. A tall and thin figure walked towards Chi-Yu. "I'm sorry, miss, I'm late." Chi-Yu's face turned pale and he stared blankly at the handsome man in front of him. After several seconds, she called out his name in a dumb voice. "Chi-Chow." Chi nodded toward her, and as far as he could see, Chi-Yu was disheveled, and extremely embarrassed. His eyes darkened slightly, he turned his face to one side, took off his coat, and put it on for Chi-Yu. After doing all this, Chi-Chow raised his gun and pointed it coldly at the man crawling on the ground, trying to escape. Before pulling the trigger, Chi-Yu's voice sounded behind him, "Keep him alive for the time being and take him back. I want to do it myself." When she gave an order, Chi-Chow made a move. After putting away the gun, Chi moved forward and quickly removed the man's arms, leaving the man lying on the ground and screaming in pain. He turned around and reported the news to Chi-He. After receiving the reply that he would send someone to handle the funeral arrangements, he walked back to Chi-Yu. Chi-Chow asked Chi-Yu if he would leave by himself or if he would carry her into the car. When Chi-Yu heard this, he raised his eyes and glared at him, originally about to get angry. I don't know what he suddenly thought of. He pursed his lips and raised his hands with obvious temper. She was wearing Chi-Chow's coat. Due to the difference in height and body shape, the clothes looked a bit like her boyfriend's coat. The sleeves were too long, and when she stretched out her hands, only her pink fingertips were exposed. The eldest lady, who used to be willful and coquettish, at this moment, looked a little bit cute. An undetectable smile flashed in Chi-Chow's eyes, but he didn't dare to show it because he was afraid that the eldest lady would scratch someone. He took a step forward, picked up Chi-Yu horizontally, walked out of the dilapidated house, and carefully put her in the car. When they went out, they inevitably saw the bodies of those people. Chi-Chow paid careful attention and found that Chi-Yu was staring at the corpses without blinking. Even after getting into the car, he told him in a cold tone, "Tell them to deal with it cleanly." Chi-Chow looked at her sarcastic side face with complicated eyes. He wanted to say something, but felt that because of his status, he was not qualified to say those comforting words. As his thoughts changed, he just nodded and said, "Yes." Why didn't Chi-Yu know the full meaning of Chi-Chow's glance? It was just to tell her that Chi-He had no choice but to not show up in person. Chi-Yu was kidnapped 5 years ago. With Chi-He's skills at the time, he could actually have disposed of the man in prison without anyone noticing, but the man did not die. That year, the Chi family suddenly regained its former glory from a declining wealthy family that was slowly struggling. Top business districts that Chi-He could not enter in the past have all taken the initiative to contact him and opened up to him. He went from a humble knocker to a spire setting the rules inside the door. Chi-Yu, who almost went crazy, received an expensive gift, 1% share of the group stock, on her 12th birthday. Chi-He did not come and only sent Chi-Chow. Chi-Yu would not understand what he meant. The body must be disposed of without leaving any traces, otherwise it will not be easy for everyone in the interest chain if it is picked out. Chi-Yu said this, how considerate. I just don't know what gift Chi-He will give her this time to compensate. If it were still a stock, that would be ridiculous. Chi-Yu was a fake. When he died on his 18th birthday, the stocks fell into the hands of Ning Jin, the serious eldest daughter of the Chi family. It's like Chi-Yu escaped death twice and made Ning Jin's wedding dress. I have to say that Chi-He is truly the darling of financial magazines. Even when Steve Jobs was alive, he would still feel inferior to this kind of business acumen. At 12 o'clock in the morning, Chiyu was sent back to the hospital. It had been a long time since she had been injured like this, and even the attending doctor, who had always kept his emotions to himself, showed pity on his face. There was a circle of white coats surrounding the hospital bed, and Chiyu was lying with an expressionless face. She didn't even cry while they tended to her bleeding wounds. Chiyu has many things to think about. For example, why did Chi Hui let that man take her away under his nose? Did he stay by the bedside while she was sleeping? For example, how should she torture that man so that she could vent all the hatred she had harbored over the years? Chiyu had bruises of varying degrees all over her body. Her skin was delicate and she was prone to subcutaneous bleeding. Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. The man punched and kicked her, leaving horrible purple-black marks all over her back and legs. She won't be able to wear a skirt for at least a month. He had been waiting anxiously outside the ward. When the doctor came out, he immediately went up to ask about Chiyu's condition. The doctor took off his mask and shook his head. "Mr. Chi, let me say this, even a tough man can't help but tormenting her like this every now and then. What's more, she is a delicate little girl. If conditions permit, send a few more people to protect her." He gritted his teeth and did not respond to the sound, waiting for the doctor's answer. "There are only a few skin injuries, but she was severely beaten. There is almost no good spot on her body. She has a slight concussion and 2 broken ribs. She will be ready to enter the operating room later. The operating room is like another home for Chiyu. She probably spent more time there than a normal girl would go to an amusement park." He pushed the door open and came in. He simply didn't know how to face Chiyu. Chiyu took the initiative to raise his head, smiled and waved to him. Halfway through the attack, I didn't know where the injury was, and his face turned pale. "Don't move." He quickly walked to the bed and carefully put Chiyu's hand back. Chi's eyes were red, and he looked like he was really worried about Chiyu. The doctor informed him that he would enter the operating room in 20 minutes. Chiyu didn't have time to talk to Chi, so he said 3 sentences. "Uncle, don't blame yourself. Chi Hui, don't deal with him for the time being. Wait until I recover from my injuries. And that man, please keep me here. Chi Chao is good. I want him to stay with me for a while. What do you think, uncle? Chi Yu is like this now. Even if she wants stars in the sky, He will find a way to get them for her. There is no reason not to agree. You can have whatever you want, uncle." Chi Yu patted the back of his hand comfortingly. It was like a drop of water, without any warmth. "It's okay, uncle, I understand your difficulty." He felt very uncomfortable. He hoped that Chi would slap him hard as he did half a month ago to vent his anger. It's better than being so sensible, like pricking a needle on the tip of his heart. How can Chi be sensible? She hides all her resentment in her heart and uses retreat to make progress, making Chi feel guilty towards her. When guilt accumulates to a certain level, it becomes an easy weakness. The more Chi feels that he is sorry for Chiyu, the better it will be for Chiyu. End of chapter. The Vicious Young Lady Who Had Been Spoiled Awakened. Chapter 9, Senior Pet Dog. Chapter 9, Senior Pet Dog. In just half a month, Chiyu narrowly escaped death twice. The Jean family heard about Chiyu's accident from some source. The charming Mrs. Jean led the reluctant Jean Yao to visit the hospital, carrying many expensive gifts. Last time, Chiyu made it clear that he wanted to terminate his engagement with the Jean family. The Jeans were so frightened that they thought it was just an ordinary quarrel between children, but they didn't expect that it made Chiyu so angry. He didn't take the Jean family seriously at all, and unilaterally notified both families that the engagement contract was void. Without even meeting, he said it directly on the phone. Jean Yao's father almost knelt down on the other end of the phone and begged Chi in a low voice to give Jean Yao another chance. He went home and beat Jean Yao severely. With a bruised nose and face, he went to admit his mistake in front of Chi. The matter of breaking off the engagement is considered to be temporarily abandoned. Mrs. Jean was much more polite than the last time she came, and the tip of her buttocks was carefully placed against the chair. As soon as Chiyu raised his eyes, she stood up and asked Chiyu earnestly if she wanted to drink water. How about peeling an apple for her to eat? Chiyu was so angry that he had nowhere to vent his worries. The mother and son arrived at the door. Thinking about it carefully, the last time she was so angry that she went to the hospital, she did nothing. It was such an advantage to them. Chiyu didn't answer and just left Mrs. Jean alone. When her expression turned embarrassing, Jean Yao, who was sitting on the stool playing with his mobile phone, stood up, looked over with an unkind expression, and then said casually, "Auntie, do you still remember Ning Jean?" Before Mrs. Jean could say anything, Jean Yao shouted impatiently, "Chiyu. If you are unhappy, just come at me and don't drag irrelevant people into it." Irrelevant people? Oh. How funny. Chiyu was too lazy to pay attention to him and said to Mrs. Jean, "Actually, it wasn't a big deal last time. You know I have a hobby and like to collect some limited edition things." She blinked her eyes, looking quite distressed. "It's a limited edition. Naturally, the fewer people around me use it, the better." Jean Yao knew that I had a pair of running shoes and bought an identical pair for Ning Jean. This will make it very difficult for me to wear them out in the future. How could Mrs. Jean not know Ning Jean? This low-status dead girl has come between Chiyu and Jean Yao more than once and twice, ruining their otherwise okay relationship. In fact, Mrs. Jean had the idea of taking care of Ning Jean as soon as she noticed something was wrong. If Jean Yao hadn't gone on a hunger strike at home and threatened her with death, he made her swear never to do anything to Ning Jean. That should have been sent to a remote place long ago, where would there be the trouble today? Don't worry, you, aunt and uncle have strictly controlled Jean Yao's pocket money. This kind of thing will never happen again in the future. Mrs. Jean almost flattered Chiyu to please her. Chiyu looked up at Jean Yao. He was clenching his fists and staring at her with gritted teeth. Seeing him unhappy made her happy instantly. "Auntie loves me so much." In the blink of an eye, Chiyu put on a cute face, grabbed Mrs. Jin's hand and shook it affectionately. "When I am discharged from the hospital this time, my aunt and uncle will definitely come to my house for a simple meal." When she said this, she probably meant that her anger had subsided. Mrs. Jean felt a big stone fall in her heart. She was no longer so worried, and she said a few more personal words. Chiyu changed the subject and said in a charming voice, "Auntie, I want to have a few words with Jean Yao alone." Mrs. Jean got what she asked for and quickly stood up, "Auntie, come downstairs and take a look. You don't have to worry. Let's talk more." Jean Yao watched Mrs. Jean leave the room, making sure that she really left. He walked to the bedside, his handsome face full of disgust. "Besides threatening me by talking about the marriage contract between the two families, what else will you do?" Chiyu curled his lips. "There are so many things you can do. Do you want to see them?" Jean Yao. He recalled the cruelty that flashed through his mother's eyes just now, worried that she would cause trouble for Ning Jean, and pursed his lips again and again, forcing himself not to give in, and apologized to Chiyu. "I'm sorry, I didn't think carefully last time. I won't do that again." Chiyu raised his eyebrows slightly, waiting for his next words. "Ning Jean is innocent. I hope that when mother comes up later, you can tell her to let Ning Jean go." "I don't." Chiyu replied in a non-negotiable tone. Jean Yao felt that he had compromised enough. Chiyu is so aggressive and bullying. He stared at Chiyu, with deep hatred rising in his eyes, clenching his fists, and suddenly reaching out to pinch Chiyu. Chiyu reacted quickly and slapped him. Jean Yao tilted his head, his anger faded like a tide, and cold sweat broke out on his back. When he woke up, he realized what a terrible thing he had just done. He should apologize to Chiyu. But the young man's pride prevented him from opening his mouth no matter what. Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. Do you feel humiliated? The girl's voice was clear and crisp, like the wind chimes under the eaves, tinkling the moment the wind blew, which was very pleasant and cold. Jean Yao looked at Chiyu and thought of a perfect word to describe her, a vicious-hearted femme fatale. She is as delicate and beautiful as a porcelain doll, but she has no desire to get close to her and only wants to stay far away. Chiyu lifted up the quilt and swung his legs beside the bed, his snow-white feet dangling. She was smiling clearly, but the words she spoke sent chills all over Jean Yao's body. Who told you that your fate was bad? When you were born into the Jean family, you were destined to bear the heavy responsibility of revitalizing the family. You have to coax me. If you can't stand, just kneel. I'm so happy that the Jean family will have good weather this year. I say he is my fiancé, but he is actually just a high-end pet dog. We knew each other well, but you had to pretend to be stupid and force me to pierce the paper, which made everyone so embarrassed. Do you think I should continue to pretend to treat you as a human being, or should I tie a rope around your neck? The room was deathly silent. Jean Yao's self-esteem was trampled under Chi Yu's feet, crushed over and over again, wasted, and was beyond recognition. He was speechless, there was a piece of ice in his throat, and his whole body was stiff. Chi Yu looked at him with pitying eyes. Tell me, do you want to be a human or a dog? Jean Yao's head almost broke on his chest. He saw Chi Yu's feet. Their skin was like cream, pink and jade, crystal clear and beautiful. There is no third answer to the proposition of choosing one of the two. Jean Yao bent his knees, knelt on one knee, held Chi Yu's feet, put her slippers on, and said in a calmer tone than he expected, "The weather is very good today, let's go out and bask in the sun." He opened his hands, palms facing up, in a handshake gesture. Only two people hold hands. Slaves, dogs, etc., can only wait with the back of their hands upward to help their master. Chi Yu smiled, but did not hold his hand. Instead, he hooked his wrist and left the ward. Neither of them knew that Ning Jin would come to the hospital at this time. So when I walked out of the room, the three faces faced each other, and they were all surprised. Chi Yu's surprise was just surprise. Jean Yao's surprise revealed panic. Ning Jin's surprise came from their intimate behavior. Isn't Jean Yao fed up with Chi Yu? Why would he allow her to get close to him? End of chapter. The vicious young lady who had been spoiled awakened. Chapter 10, Are they two enough? Chapter 10, Are these two trash good enough? Ning Jin was very proud that it took less than 2 years to Jean Yao from Chi Yu. She flirted with Jean Yao so distantly that everyone felt that they had already understood each other. But it doesn't. To this day, despite Jean Yao confessing his love to Ning Jin several times, she has never relented and agreed to be together. It's not that I'm worried about the bad reputation of stealing someone else's boyfriend from a moral perspective, it's just that I'm just playing hard to get. Jean Yao is a person who likes challenges. For him, what he can't get is the best. Ning Jin always believed that she was in control of the overall situation. But now, she was a little panicked. Jean Yao is stubborn and rebellious. As long as he believes in something, even 10 cows can't stop him. Chi Yu fainted in front of him, and he didn't even blink. The degree of disgust is evident. How could he be willing to let Chi Yu help him walk after only more than 10 days? His expression was calm, and although not eager, he didn't resist either. Jean Yao subconsciously wanted to withdraw his hand, but as soon as this thought flashed through his mind, he killed himself. Do you want to be a human or a dog? His body stiffened into a sculpture, and he forced a smile to Ning Jin. Why are you here? Ning Jin was more tolerant than him. He picked up the thermos bucket in his hand as if nothing had happened and said in a brisk tone, "Miss hurt her ribs. My mother made pork bone soup and asked me to deliver it. I hope it can make up for the injury." Chi Yu pondered the undercurrent between the two of them, feeling like the vicious female partner who broke up the fateful couple in a novel. Seeing that Chi Yu had no intention of speaking, Ning Jin planned to send the thermos bucket into the ward. Just as he took a step forward, he was coldly stopped by Chi Yu. "Take it away, it seems you have a bad memory and forgot that I hate broth." Ning Jin stopped her feet, bit her lip, and said a little sadly, "Mom set 5 alarm clocks and stayed up most of the night. At least she is sincere. Miss, can you drink a little?" Chi Yu seemed to have heard some joke and sneered, "Why should I wrong myself for her pitiful thoughts?" After hearing Ning Jin's words, normal people would probably reluctantly say, "Let's have a taste." After all, it's not good to ruin other people's feelings. Chi Yu is obviously not an ordinary person. She grew up being pampered by her whole family. She must get the things she likes, and no one can force them on her if she doesn't like them. Ning Jin squeezed the handle of the thermos bucket tightly with her slender fingers and glanced at Jin Yao seemingly inadvertently. The look in his eyes was helpless, pitiful, and endearing. Jin Yao couldn't hold it back and cried out for Ning Jin's mother, "Aunt Xiao also cares about you, otherwise." Qiyu withdrew his hand from Jin Yao's arm and looked up at him with a half-smile. "You don't want to bask in the sun again?" Jin Yao felt like she had become a kite in Qiyu's hands, and she could control her emotions easily. Suppressing the unhappiness surging in his heart, Jin Yao twitched the corners of his mouth and said, "Let's go." He reached out his hand again, but Qiyu didn't take it. She walked forward on her own, and the moment she passed by Ning Jin, she smiled and said, "Congratulations, the concert was a success, you are very happy, right?" Ning Jin's pupils shrank, remembering that Qi Hui had been restless these days, and couldn't help but look sideways at Qiyu anxiously. Qiyu didn't look at her, as if those words were just what she said to herself. Jin Yao only had time to hurriedly comfort Ning Jin with, "Don't be sad," before chasing after Qiyu in a slightly anxious manner. Ning Jin watched them disappear at the elevator door, feeling as if something was about to escape her control, and felt vaguely uneasy. In the closed elevator, silence breathes. Jin Yao opened his mouth and closed it several times. Seeing his tortured look, Qiyu wanted to laugh a little. Sure enough, he was frightened by what she said in the ward. Before, he would have been shouting to defend Ning Jin. "Ask." Qiyu said calmly. Jin Yao won the gold medal to avoid death, and originally wanted to ask her directly why she was so hostile to Ning Jin's mother. After thinking for a while, he changed the question to a tactful one, "Why don't you like drinking broth?" He grew up with Qiyu, and he still remembered that she didn't have any taboos. When she was a child, she liked to drink soup made with yam, ribs, and corn. Why does it change the taste as it gets older? Qiyu was surprised that he actually asked himself this. Speaking of broth, it was a very unpleasant memory. Check out the 16:9 book bar and see the correct version. The elevator door opened and Qiyu walked out first. Jin Yao thought she would not respond to him, but saw Qiyu stop and look at him. "Remember Snowball?" Jin Yao's expression was blank, and Qiyu's tone was mocking. "I don't even remember the gifts I gave out." "Are you suffering from Alzheimer's disease in advance?" Being scolded for having a bad memory, Jin Yao ignored his anger and remembered, "Is it the little rabbit I gave you when I was 12 years old?" Qiyu looked at Ning Jin, who came out of the elevator behind him with a cold expression. "I have raised it for 3 years, but Aunt Xiao accidentally stewed it in your mouth. She didn't tell me what it was at all. She said it was eaten. It replenishes the body. I vomited for 2 days." At this time, Ning Jin had already arrived. Qiyu deliberately lowered his voice. She had no idea what Qiyu was talking to Jin Yao. The sense of crisis prompted Ning Jin to do something to make Jin Yao, who was obviously wrong, return to unconditionally protect her as before, instead of standing by Qiyu's side. "Jin Yao, your homework is at my house. Let's go together later." Jin Yao felt a fire in his heart and raised his eyebrows to interrupt Ning Jin. "Aunt Xiao doesn't know that Snow Tuan is the pet I gave to Qiyu. How could she be so ridiculous as to stew it?" Ning Jin was dumbfounded when asked. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of the sneer on Qiyu's face, and she realized that she had been tricked. Ning Jin felt secretly resentful, but panic and guilt quickly brewed on her face. "After a while, my eyes were filled with tears. Yes, I'm sorry, Miss was seriously ill at that time. My mother was also worried about Miss, so she listened to folk remedies and did stupid things. Although I knelt for 2 days, Miss did not forgive my mother, but now that 4 years have passed, Miss, if your anger hasn't gone away yet, then I." Her body went limp and her knees hit the ground. She looked very embarrassed and said, "Why don't you just kneel down and ask for your forgiveness this time?" Although Jin Yao was angry at what Ning Jin's mother had done, he didn't want Ho Ning Jin to suffer this humiliation in a hospital where people were coming and going. He helped Ning Jin up and watched her wipe her tears. He no longer had any thoughts of blaming her, only caring about his heartache. "Now that the matter is over and Auntie has realized her mistake, let's forget about it." Ning Jin bit her lip, looked at Qiyu carefully, and said as thinly as a mosquito, "I just don't know what the lady is thinking." Jin Yao turned around and Chiyu smiled, harmlessly, even a little tenderly. But what she said made Jin Yao and Ning Jin suddenly change their faces. I think your mother is a bitch. I didn't skin her and stew her to avenge the snow dumplings. It's not allowed by law. Otherwise, you would have no mother now, you know. Dare you force her to say anything about forgiveness, they are both trash. End of chapter.